Good day, and greetings to our colleagues across the globe. Welcome to our annual EMEA Recognition Program. My name is Steve Acunto. I'm chairman of Beacon International Group, publishers of Commercial Risk in London and Europe, Asia Insurance Review from Singapore, Middle East Insurance Review in Amman, Jordan, Business Insurance, the U.S. leader, and Workers' Comp Central and the Insurance Advocate in New York. Today we celebrate accomplishment, and I mean accomplishment, because the modicum of our celebration, at the core of this celebration, is the objectivity of our judges and the transparency and clarity of the processes of judgment. That distinguishes this awards ceremony from many others where I think an element of hyperbole enters perhaps, and maybe the processes are not that carefully governed. So we want our award to mean so much, and it does. I would like to point out that our publications consider themselves partners with thought leaders across the globe. We serve today over 1 million viewers and visitors per month on our websites and in our print editions of the magazines. And that's an enormous responsibility. We take it very seriously. It's a privilege, but it's a responsibility. Just as you have taken responsibility for risk management, risk transfer, risk financing, those services to society that enable business, enable risk to be undertaken, and enable underwriting. It's a wonderful service that you do, and to do it so well makes it an excellent service. So may I thank you on behalf of our staff across the world, and may I wish you continued success to the honorees and to all of you on this call. We have a most worthwhile business we serve and most worthwhile people serving it, and that's you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for joining us today as we celebrate the accomplishments of women from every facet of the commercial industry in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. I am Debbie Hamilton, the Executive Director of the Business Insurance Foundation, and I oversee our foundation's programs. May I begin by thanking our sponsors, AIG, our global presenting partner, Liberty Specialty, Ryan Specialty Group, and Sedgwick. Thank you, friends. I would also like to thank the speakers, moderators, panelists, and past honorees for making this happen. And thanks to each of you who submitted nominations to our team who worked so diligently to select outstanding women from among the hundreds of nominees that we receive every year. To date, we have recognized more than 500 women over these several years. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our CEO panel, the new face of leadership, ESG in today's world. Amy Barnes, Managing Director, Head of Climate and Sustainability Strategy at Marsh, will be the moderator, and she will be joined by 3 distinguished CEOs, whom she will introduce in just a moment. But first, a word about Amy. Amy leads Marsh's global sustainability and climate change strategy. She has held a number of leadership roles with Marsh's global energy, power, and renewables business. She has 20 years of relevant industry experience with Marsh as a sector leader. She holds a bachelor's degree in geography, Royal Holloway at the University of London, and a master's degree from the University of Nottingham. Amy, thank you for being with us today, and now I will turn this over to you.
Thank you very much for that, Debbie. Welcome to everyone to the new face of leadership, ESG in today's world. I am really privileged to be able to introduce our 3 esteemed panelists who've got both real-world experience of dealing with these challenges and a passion for this subject. Before I introduce them, I think it's just worth highlighting the speed at which our world has changed Climate and sustainability have been an issue for us as individuals and for business for a long time, but the frequency with which these issues are discussed, both in the press and at boardrooms, has accelerated at an amazing rate from the start of the year. So if you weren't seeing climate and sustainability in the press every day before COP, now that we're in the midst of it, it can't help to be front of mind for everyone. So let me introduce the panelists without further ado. First of all, we have Florence Tondu-Melic from Zurich. She's responsible for Zurich, a CEO of Zurich France, a member of Zurich's group board with over 20 years experience across banking, investment management, and business transformation. John Neal is the CEO of Lloyds, has been for the past 3 years, and prior to that, he was the CEO of QBE Australia, where he lived for 8 years. And Sean McGovern is the CEO of the UK and Lloyds platform for AXA XL and a member of the board of Lloyds and of the London Market Group. So thank you all very much for joining me. Let's get straight to it. Sean, we sometimes talk about climate and sustainability interchangeably. How is the insurance industry thinking about climate and sustainability, and are the terms interchangeable?
Well, thanks, Amy, and really glad to be part of the panel. So thanks very much for the invitation. You're quite right, and you mentioned it just in your introductory remarks that climate change is the major focus right now, and it's not surprising given with COP coming, but it is a preoccupation of the industry, our clients, and the wider public. And obviously close to home, our industry, the insurance industry, has its own particular preoccupation with climate risk, given the increased economic costs and the increased insured losses that we're seeing coming from natural catastrophe events. But you raise a very good point, and I do think we need to consistently remind ourselves that sustainability is so much broader than just the immediate climate change debate that we're seeing now, and we've got to be careful that it doesn't crowd out all of the other dimensions of sustainability, which of course include environmental factors, which go beyond the risks around climate change, which is more around our impact and reducing our impact on the planet. So it raises issues of biodiversity preservation, of plastic pollution, waste management, water management, etc. So it is broader than just climate, but I actually think it goes even further than that. I think what we do is we often use sustainability and ESG interchangeably. So the E in ESG for environmental obviously gets a lot of attention, and it is a broader agenda than just climate risk, as I've mentioned. S is obviously for social, and it's understanding your corporate purpose. It's how you engage with society, with your employees, with the communities in which you operate, and how do you ensure that you have a positive impact on wider societal challenges, and obviously then G for governance, which is around ensuring that our businesses have the right controls in place, particularly around strong stewardship of business and ensuring that you're delivering on the commitments that you're making, particularly around social and environmental issues. So yes, I think climate is definitely top of mind for everybody. Sustainability is much broader and is often used interchangeably with ESG.
And do you ever see that some of the climate goals come into conflict with some of the broader goals encapsulated in ESG and sustainability?
I think there is a challenge in that for sure. And, if you look at some of commitments that businesses make around, the influence that they can have over reducing climate impact, there has to be great care to ensure that you aren't inadvertently impacting the ability of emerging economies to be able to ensure that they have the right kind of power supplies, for example. So there is a careful balance that needs to be struck, because whilst you want to be taking strong climate action, you need to ensure that you're not creating unintended consequences as a result of the strong action you're trying to take.
Thank you. Florence, if I may turn to you, because of the breadth of your experience in the financial service industry, this industry has been called out for its role in addressing climate change. But specifically to the insurance industry, what do you think our role is? What should we be doing, and are we doing it?
Thank you, Amy, and thanks for the invitation. I guess the latest IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, has pointed over the summer to a global temperature increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius 10 years earlier than expected, with serious and tangible consequences. But I think more fundamentally, global warming is disrupting our economic and social development models with the integration of the cost of negative externalities. Obviously, insurance is at the very heart of our societies, of their evolution, and of course, of the adaptation to those risks that these may entail. And what is really new is that in a globalized and interconnected world, those risks, climate, but also biodiversity, technologies, take on a systemic dimension. And since they cannot be contained, they cannot be transferred to a single party. That's why only a joint commitment from the public and private spheres, together with civil society, will enable us to drive the necessary change and build our collective resilience. Obviously, as insurer, we are a key protagonist in terms of preventing and responding to this deep magnitude risk, leveraging on one side our relationships with clients, but also our ability to build partnerships with public authorities. We have a unique position in the sense that we have a legitimacy, we have the insights to enlighten all constituencies about the damaging impact of environmental risk that they can have on our economies and societies over the long term. We can draw on our data, we can draw on our foresight and as well on our soft power to prompt companies to accelerate their ecological transition, but also to enact much more broader and structural changes. So somehow we are pathfinders, pointing the way for others, helping anticipate and identify risk, helping share best practices and educate stakeholders. Ultimately, environmental factors become part of the public and corporate conversation on a systematic basis. But there is more into that, because we are long-term investors, we are underwriters, so we can positively and much more directly steer other agents through our own underwriting and investment policies. And there is an interconnectedness here because our investments of today are creating the balances or the imbalances that tomorrow we will have to ensure the consequences of. And capital markets really, I believe, should be deployed to help fund the solutions that we need to address those pressing issues. And more than ever, we need to make sure that we are matching words with actions by really implementing those ESG standards. Just to share a bit as to how we are approaching that at Zurich, we are trying to translate our social and environmental ambitions in everything we do. And this has earned us actually a top ranking in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We have started with prioritizing ESG objective in our impact investment portfolio, which has now exceeded its target allocation of $5 billion. We have pledged not to invest nor underwrite companies that derive more than 30% of their revenues or activities from fossil fuels, obviously helping corporates going through that transition. We went further lately by committing to reduce by 25% the carbon intensity in our equity and government bonds portfolios, but also to reduce by 30% that of our direct real estate portfolio. The group has been carbon neutral since 2014, but we want to go further in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions with cuts of our air travel by 70% over the next coming years, and other measures which are focused at our fleets, food, paper, premises. We also aim to accompany our clients through the change and expanding our range of sustainable products and services. And we have launched in September the first global carbon neutral fund in the industry. And we are developing our services to support the clean energy sector. So why we are doing that? We are doing that because fundamentally we want to send a signal to our current and potential clients that we firmly believe that sustainability and competitiveness actually are intrinsically linked. We believe that beyond the ethical issue, the ESG risk will ultimately impact clients on both sides of their balance sheets, the assets and liabilities. So eventually, we have the conviction that the most responsible economies and companies will also be the most competitive.
Thank you. That a very robust answer. And I think that there's a follow-on, if I may, for John. Florence talked about the reason why our industry needs to be leading in this area. The fact that we are, I think you used the words, part of the fabric of society, and that we have a number of tools that can really lend themselves to climate and sustainability. So, John, there is a real weight of expectation that technological developments are going to help us achieve net zero and improve our resilience as the climate changes. But the insurance industry isn't actually known for embracing innovation. And so what needs to change to make sure that we're keeping up and that the noble intentions that Florence spoke about, we're actually delivering for clients?
Thanks, Amy. And you're right, aren't you? When we talk about sustainability, fundamentally, it's about building organizations that can last. And if we're talking about organizations that can last, they need to be inclusive. So employees need to feel welcome and able to fulfill their potential. We really do need to understand the threats of risk and emerging risk, but we need to be experts in technology. Technology keeps us running, it keeps us competitive, it makes us relevant in a modern world. And I think it's telling us that the solutions we're talking about in the broad topic of ESG aren't just down to scientists, they're not just down to policymakers. And we can use technology in our world and we can use innovation to make a real difference. I'll just give you two simple examples. We run a lab, an InsurTech lab within the Lloyd's environment. Who would have thought that one of the first companies to pass through that lab, a company called Parcel, would actually come to the fore in COVID? We didn't realize at the time that their expertise was in the Internet of Things, sensors that could be used to support the transportation of vaccinations. Who would have thought that 2 years later, we would be working in partnership with them to see how we could efficiently allow vaccines to be transferred and transported actually into the second and the third world. And that's technology, real time, at work, real track and trace, real capability to monitor the usefulness, useful life, and the ability to get a vaccine exactly to a point where it's needed. So great example of technology at work there. And also, we've tried to promote and facilitate innovation around products, particularly when we look at the green industrial agenda. So, if we're going to face off to government's expectation, if we're going to support transition, we need to find ways to ensure nuclear, to ensure the transportation of carbon, whether it's wind, or solar or battery. All of these need a solution. And there's a responsibility on us to ensure that the right facilities are in place to engender that type of change. And very, very topically at the moment, I think we all feel on this call that the insurance industry has a responsibility to ensure transition. We're never going to get to where we want to be. We will not get to net zero unless we have a means of ensuring transition. But to justify that position, we have to be able to measure transition. And that really goes down to the technology that understands what we do and what our customers are doing so that we can plot that path, so that we can say to everyone in the world that we are part of the solution for transition and that we can therefore support our customers on that journey. And technology has a huge role to play in that respect.
So John, just for people who aren't familiar, would you mind just spending 2 minutes just to explain Lloyd's Labs and its raison d'etre?
Yeah, we wanted to really promote innovation, if you like, and the partnership of established insurance businesses with InsurTechs right in the heart of the Lloyd's building. So the Lloyd's Lab exists within our building, within our framework. And we've had 80 InsurTech companies have gone through that lab in the last 3 years. They always do so in partnership with established businesses. And in fact, Sean and AXA have been very heavily involved in sponsoring a number of participants that go through the lab. It's a really good way of promoting that sense of using technology and using innovation with established business partners who probably have the distribution network that the insurtechs don't have. And there's empirical evidence telling us that of the startups and the insurtechs that are likely to survive, it's 5% more likely if they partner with existing businesses. So our theory was, hey, let's put the insurtechs into the middle of the established business and create those partnerships from the get-go. And it's been hugely successful, hugely successful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So climate is a critical issue that we all have both responsibility and, from what I'm hearing from all of you, a desire to be part of the solutions, and we can bring the tools that we have to that. But I just want to step back a bit and go back up to sustainability, Sean, as you'd outlined it at the outset. What do you think the role of insurance is in the social agenda? We've kind of talked about in the climate agenda. If we take that to the social agenda, and if sort of following on from that, you can just give your feelings about what you expect of both your leaders and future leaders in the industry so that they are owning this agenda and driving it forward.
Sure, maybe I'll start with that and then come back to the social agenda. So I think as John has outlined, I mean, this is a huge opportunity, I think, for leaders today and the leaders of tomorrow, because what will drive businesses in the future, what's going to drive a business in the future isn't going to be the same as what's driven it in the past. And the whole raison d'etre and corporate purpose is really coming to the fore now. And I think insurance is undoubtedly a business that inherently has a very strong socially useful purpose. And historically, I'm not sure that we've always been that good at emphasizing that to our clients, our employees, current and future. And I think the heightened attention now around corporate purpose, around ESG, really is an opportunity for the industry to step up, support the energy transition, as John has said, and further the positive impact that we have on society. And our corporate purpose as AXA is to act for human progress by protecting what matters. And it's really using our knowledge, experience, the services we offer, the products we sell, and the influence that we have as a business to really further wider societal goals. And so as you look for the leadership in the industry, I think the aspiring and future leaders, can divine a very, very positive role that the insurance industry can play in helping solve some of these very, very difficult global issues. And I think it's a very exciting prospect. I think the current attention in the space does create that remarkable opportunity for the industry to show what it can do. On the social side, I think it's really interesting, some of the challenges as you think about the impact on communities, how you engage with your employees, the role of diversity and inclusion that is so important for the future for the industry to make it sustainable in the way that John described. And I think, in particular, the role of an insurer as a responsible employer has a role in driving better engagement, not only with its current workforce, but also with the future workforce and also the communities in which we serve. And maybe we can get into it later, but there's a particular agenda around, how we can support women to become the future leaders in the industry, where we know we've got further work to do. But societal questions relate to community engagement, which is really important for employees. We have a workforce that is really keen to help those who are in a position that is less fortunate and really want to get engaged with their local community. So I think industry can have a real role in galvanizing that effort and making it easy for their colleagues to engage with local communities. I think there is a lot we can do through charitable and other efforts, and we do that. We have a global day of giving where every single colleague across AXA XL spends the day volunteering in their local community. So there's a whole range of things, and we can get into some other examples. But I do think it's a really important part of the future proposition of the sector as an attractive place for future talent to be. It is something that increasingly comes up as we're onboarding new talent. Talent is very keen to work in an organization that is going somewhere, but is also playing its part in tackling some of these very difficult social and global problems. And I think it's going to be a really important part of making the industry one of the most attractive places to work.
I couldn't agree more. Florence, I'm interested in your thoughts about that issue, about the very dynamic space that we're operating in, and the new skills and the flexibility that future leaders are going to have. What do you think the most important things we can be doing to support your senior ranks to have a more inclusive leadership style, to make sure that we really are nurturing future talent?
Sure. Diversity, inclusion, and also equal opportunity, we know that today not only augments an organization's performance, but also help reduce the risk of social fracture, which, by the way, has been significantly exacerbated by the current economic crisis. Obviously, as risk management professionals, these considerations do resonate with us. So we integrate all diversity across all dimensions within our D&I policy. So this is not only about gender, but this is also about age group. This is about social and cultural backgrounds. This is also about cognitive differences, disability, and so forth. What I believe is that in the current economy, which is now characterized by immediacy and impermanence, a company performance depends above all on its collective intelligence, and innovation, which we just discussed, comes from the pluralism of ideas and experiences. So our role as leaders is actually about creating the best conditions so that three things can happen. The first one is to catalyze each and every talent so that they can realize their potential. The second thing is to promote and organize team diversity so that we can continuously nourish that collective intelligence. And the third element is to encourage a culture which is about learning, which is about having a growth mindset where it is psychology safe to try and experience so that we can move forward collectively. As a result, this calls, in my view, for a different kind of leadership where humility, empathy, and authenticity are key. But unleashing that collective intelligence is also directly linked to another imperative, in my view, which is the need to challenge social norms, to challenge standards, to combat even unfertile consensus, because this restrains our ability to innovate and be creative. So this is about deconstructing unconscious bias that shape our vision of others, our vision also of ourselves, which can be obstacle to progress. And this also requires working actively to transform our corporate culture so that each and everyone can be given the chance that he or she deserves. And this is obviously true for recruitment process, but this goes beyond. So at Zurich, we try to embed those aspects in our approach to employee inclusion and integration. Just to give you a couple of concrete examples. In France, we have set the objective to recruit 80% of our apprentices and interns from diversity, candidates with a disability, candidates from socially vulnerable or culturally diverse backgrounds. And we are working with nonprofit organizations to make sure that we have the right pipeline of candidates. We have also established globally the Zurich Women's Innovation Network, which is a global group of 6,500 employees across 23 countries. And it is composed of both men and women, all levels in the organization, across all regions. And what's the purpose of this group is to advocate for a level playing field so that each and every employee can give their best at work. The last thing that we did is an experiment, actually in the UK market. We did pioneer last year an initiative to make all jobs opening available for part-time, for timeshare, and for flexible working, making sure we were using a gender-neutral language. And the results have been actually quite encouraging. Not only the number of candidates, male and female, has doubled, but the number of women applying for senior roles has increased by 20%, resulting in 33% more of them being hired in those senior positions. So these are very concrete examples as to how we can collectively lead that change.
Thank you. That's a really inspiring case study. John, just because of your view as Lloyds, you kind of have a sort of an industry perspective. Florence talked about some of the steps Zurich is taking, but I think that certainly as an employer myself, I've found that we haven't always done a great job in the insurance industry of attracting talent, let alone any bias that then comes into the hiring process. What do you think that we need to be doing as an industry to attract a more diverse group of potential future colleagues to join us?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you know, as Sean and Florence have been saying, I mean, you know, for me, one of the beauties of insurance is we have a social purpose at our core. You know, our whole essence is to be there for our customer at their greatest point of need. So, you know, if you think of the modern world and the conversation we're having, which has climate, sustainability, and inclusion at its heart, we should be amazingly attractive to the talent that's about to come through and take leadership roles in insurance in the future. I think honestly, and it's good you asked me this question because Lloyds wasn't exactly the poster child of how to do this right. You could argue we were the poster child of how to do it wrong. And that certainly put us into a period of introspection. And out of introspection, you have to take action. So I think it just can't be words. You've got to be determined to want to make a change. And, you know, from our point of view, we put culture and purpose pari passu with performance and digitalization in terms of our priorities, equal priority in terms of wanting to make a change in our organization. And that means a determination to tackle some of the issues that have been outstanding too long, tackle the pay gap, just get on and come up with a plan to deal with it. You know, I'm sorry if it means you have to put targets down for, you know, for gender in terms of leadership positions, put them down. And we did that. If it means you put hiring targets in place for colleagues from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, do that as well. But I think underneath it all, I think you've got to show some leadership. And I think it's about a determination to want to make change happen. So certainly, selfishly, from my perspective in the corporation, if you take gender specifically, why wouldn't you aspire to gender parity? In fact, why don't you just operate with gender parity? Because if that's what you want to do, then that's what you will do. And, you know, in a 3-year period, we've moved from inequality from a gender point of view to absolute gender parity across all leadership levels within the corporation of Lloyds. So I genuinely think it's about it being a leadership imperative, about it being a mindset and wanting to make the change. You know, if you want to make a change culturally as much as you want to make a change from a performance point of view, it will happen. So it's about desire and intention and action.
Thank you. Sean, is there anything that you would add from your experience in the UK or any prior roles?
So I agree with everything that Florence and John have said. I mean, to be honest, you have to treat it as if it's any other business imperative, business goal, and therefore you have to have a clear strategy, roadmap. You're setting targets, you're holding people to account, not because you're trying to tick boxes, but because you firmly believe that it's an important part of being a winning business and being a more successful, sustainable business for the future, as we've been talking about. And so for us, it's about taking deliberate action. So, you know, building a strong, diverse internal pipeline is really important. So it's great to be onboarding more diverse talent, but it's also about paying attention to the talent you already have and trying to ensure that you can accelerate the careers of those who perhaps have been overlooked in the past. So an example of that would be we have a Empower initiative, which is supporting historically underrepresented talent to really own their own careers and really drive their careers forward. So it involves colleagues from around the world. They get HR one-on-one coaching to discuss their career goals, their objectives, and get coaching support for that. They get time with other senior leaders. They get more visibility in the organization, and they get sponsored. And so it's lots of small initiatives can have a very large cumulative effect. And when you get successes, it breeds success. And we do all the things that you would expect, diverse slate for all roles in some of the ways in which Florence has discussed. We've committed to, women in finance initiatives, the flexible working charter, race to work charter. But it's about bringing that all to life. It's one thing to sign up to a commitment. It's another thing to embed it within your organization. And to embed it, people need to know it's important, and they know it's important when they're going to get measured by the progress that we're making. So for us, it is no different to any other business priority that we set. We have a strategy, we have a roadmap, we set targets, and we hold people to account. And we have to approach it in that way, because that's the way you get the progress you want at the speed you want it.
Thank you. So Sean, I'm going to stick with you, and I'm afraid it's about to get personal, because we've all faced challenges on our journeys. So specifically in the context of diversity and inclusion, is there a particular challenge in your journey that stands out, and how did you overcome it?
So I'm probably much like John, the sort of epitome of the story of the insurance industry. Some sort of white male, middle-aged guy who's managed to sort of scrape his way to the top of the organisations that we work for. So I am not going to pretend that I have faced any of the challenges that I suspect many people have faced as they've tried to make their careers in the insurance industry. However, what I would say is, it's my role as a father. I have a son and I have two daughters. And it was really, as I was seeing them grow up and as I was observing some of the things that were going on in the world and in the industry, it was very important to me that I did what I could, because I wanted to make sure that my daughters had exactly the same life chances as my son. So it was really, that was a sort of, if you like, a slightly personal awakening. And I guess, given that I have, a relatively privileged career relative to others, I guess I look in my current role, it's about trying to put myself in the shoes of others. It's about taking the time to listen to people's experience and to understand then what you can do, being in a position of influence, to improve their situation and learn from their situation to make sure that doesn't happen to other people. And I think we all, as leaders, need to be humble about learning about some of the very real challenges that people have faced, and use our positions, try to ensure that we could create a positive environment for all talent. I mean, one thing that was particularly top of mind for me during COVID-19 and the pandemic was the disproportionately negative impact that was clearly felt by women. It was women that, unfortunately, when we went into lockdown, it was very clear that the majority of household tasks, caring responsibilities, homeschooling fell on the shoulders of women. And it is clear from research that COVID-19 meant that we saw an increasing number of women actually leaving employment as they face those pressures. And so, if there's one parent who has to give up their role, in many instances, couples will sacrifice, what they might regard as being the lowest paid role. And that's often because of history been performed by a woman. And then you just continue to reinforce some of the things we're trying to correct. So we paid a lot of attention to that, and we've done a number of things to try to address that within our business. So we've implemented smart working, so very, very open to flexible working, people spending the right time in the office when they need to be, but otherwise working flexibly. We've signed that and reinforced that by signing the flexible work charter. We have a very strong back in business network, which is a network of our colleagues who offer support to colleagues who are coming back into the workplace. And that does historically tell us that that's support that women have tended to need. And we are partnering with inclusivity partners to really provide opportunities for career returners to return to the workplace and find roles across the organisation and make it as easy as possible for them, not only to re-enter the workplace, but find the right balance of part-time and flexible working to really make it, it's a talent pool that we have neglected and we need to embrace for the future. So those are just some examples.
Thank you. John, I'm afraid you don't get off the hook. And I appreciate that kind of journeys are different for everyone, but has there been a time where you felt that diversity inclusion has presented a particular challenge for you, and how did you overcome it?
It's a great question, Amy, and it was fascinating listening to Sean's response. I remember vividly, you mentioned in your introduction that I lived in Australia for 7.5 years, and I remember turning up in Australia in 2011, feeling really quite underprepared for the sort of the political and social agenda in the country. And there were two things that were prominent that we've been talking about today. One was climate. I think we'd all obviously think climate was prominent in Australia. The other I hadn't anticipated was gender equality, and federal government was well on the way to mandating gender equality in the workplace in 2011, a decade ahead of the conversation that we're having today. And you think, well, I'm new in the country. I just need to understand what this means for different people. And you think, goodness me, is this going to be difficult in financial services? Well, of course, famously, Australia has 2 miners domiciled in the country. So I remember talking to them saying, how are you going to deal with gender equality? And they said, we've gone right back to the basic thinking of how we hire. And we've scrapped this concept of job descriptions and the way we do things. And we've looked at characteristics and attributes. So we looked at a mine operator and said, what characteristics and attributes do we need in the mine operator? And we said, look, they need to be qualified. They need to be technologically proficient. They need to have a right first time mentality, and they need to care. And we went away and said, what occupation matches best to those qualities? And the answer was a nurse. So somewhat shockingly, they thought, we'll follow this through, went into the health service, hired nurses, retrained them as mine operators. Productivity went up 18%. End of story, as far as I was concerned, that anybody can possibly ever want to contest the value of diversity and inclusion, and particularly in this instance with gender. So that's why when I was saying earlier on, I'm not interested in the debate. Just take action, have a determination that thinking outside of the box will create a better solution for tomorrow. So that was a really good lesson of how to tackle what people saw as a generational change problem. Not generational, just think outside of the box, do something differently, get on with a better solution.
Florence, I'm not quite sure how you follow up on that example, but what about from you? When have you faced a barrier that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, very inspiring experiences, John and Sean, and great question, Amy. Well, reflecting on some of my conversations with my mentees, one of the many obstacles which appears in a woman's career is the expectation when it comes to leading position to have international experience. And we know that reconciling personal and professional lives may not be easy, especially if it means moving a whole family abroad. The choice might be difficult. So one of the ways to overcome this would be encouraging young women to have international exposure earlier on in their career, as such an experience would not only put graduates on an equal footing in terms of performance and competence, it has the benefit of erasing as well social biases, but it accelerates the ability to understand and adapt to a different culture, to read and acquire different codes, to develop self-confidence, self-awareness, and all the emotional intelligence qualities, which are heavily now sought after as diversity and parity is becoming crucial at executive committee level. When I was a young student, my taste for adventure and backpacking pushed me to travel the world from Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia to Timbuktu in Mali. And at the age of 20, I took advantage of a graduate program, a graduate opportunity during my curriculum in business school to move to Singapore and work in investment and corporate banking. At that time, with the collapse of the local currencies and an unprecedented economic crisis which affected all the countries in the region, I had the chance to assist the CEO of that area piloting the business at a very turbulent time. And believe me, this experience has been hugely defining in many respects, not only from a professional point of view, but also from a personal point of view. And some of the leadership lessons which I've learned and continue to guide me to this day, including in my current role as CEO of Zurich in France.
Thank you all so much for sharing both your professional and your personal insight. I mean, I found it absolutely fascinating. The opportunity for us as an industry to really impact both the speed and the agenda of the climate crisis, thinking more broadly about sustainability, how we impact societies with our role, but also how we behave as ourselves as corporations and our ability as individuals and as leaders to take responsibility for that agenda. And then some of the personal stories. John, that example of the mining companies looking at characteristics to hire in a completely different way, that's going to stick with me. And I think we can all take lessons from that as well, in terms of some of the personal bravery that when we're trying to make decisions and think, are we skilled enough to do a perfect role? I'm going to come back to that example and challenge myself that do I have the competence and behaviors? So thank you so much for a really interesting conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Amy, John, Sharon.
You too.
Angie.
Good evening all. My name is Rianne Bouwman and I am the Chief Broking Officer of Raadsheren, an Acrisure partner. When I received an email from Business Insurance announcing that I'm one of the 20 recipients of this year's Women to Watch Award, I felt really blessed and honored. Honored by the fact that I'm rewarded with an award that recognizes the work that brings me so much joy, my current role at Raadsheren, but also a rewarding job mentoring young people, organizing fundraising events for the Dutch insurance market to support worthy causes, and pursuing my academic interests. Everything I do with great pleasure and passion. Yet, I'm reminded every day that not everyone is afforded the same good fortune. I feel very privileged to be in this position and to experience so much joy in the work I do. Every single day, I'm also very much aware that I am blessed to have a community that always believes in me, supports me, and encourages me. I know only too well that not everyone, and certainly not every woman, is as fortunate. Although diversity and inclusion are on the board agenda of almost every organization, there is still a lot to be done. The job interview training courses I have enjoyed giving for Yink, a local charity organization, have shown me time and time again just how persistent inequality really is, and that inequality starts even before young people enter the job market. But I truly believe that each and every one of us has the ability to make a positive difference in the lives of others and in the communities we live in. I consider myself very fortunate to be able to make a contribution here. Since I started my career in 2005, I've been employed by different employees in different roles. My personal interest in innovation and digitalization on one hand, and investing in people to strengthen relationships and organization on the other hand, runs as a red thread right through my career. It is the combination that brings out the best of me. One of the many things I appreciate about working for Acrisure is its keen willingness to embrace technology and stay ahead of the market, while recognizing the importance of the human factor in our work. Acrisure deploys the best of human and artificial intelligence at scale to reimagine financial service product distribution. I am proud to be part of an industry leader that emphasizes on tech, innovation, and solutions that deliver the right outcomes for its partners and clients. I would like to reiterate once more how incredibly honored I am to receive this award. And to my family, industry friends, and colleagues, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for your confidence and support. I truly look forward to what the future will bring.
I'm feeling very honored and thankful to be named as Woman to Watch 2021. At the same time, I'm proud to be embedded by such inspiring females. Together, we can build networks, work on very important topics, and make an impact. I started my career early on as a surety underwriter at the age of 22. Back then, it was very difficult to gain the respect of very senior CFOs, head of treasuries. Being a female was an easy job. But I made it due to a high self-confidence about my skills, a good knowledge of the market, and also my willingness to work on tailor-made solutions for my clients. At the age of 27, I was asked to open up a surety division for an American company from scratch. Honestly speaking, I had no clue how to create a business plan. How can I build up a team with the right experts? But more importantly, how to convince a reinsurance company to give me cover. But these years of experimental learning were shaping for my future career. I used this skill set again when I was asked to open up the European division for Swiss Re Corporate Solutions 7 years ago. All these learnings were only possible due to my willingness to step out of my day-to-day underwriter job, volunteering for projects which fits to my skill set, but also going the extra mile, helping in projects which were outside of my working environment, building networks, working on my visibility, and just be there, inspire and engage. This was also only possible due to the help and support of great mentors who helped me improving, for example, my leadership skills. But more importantly, I would like to advise to every young talent, also look for 1 or 2 sponsors. Sponsors are people who help you building connections, connect the dots to a new executive, for example, to find the next perfect role for you. It's great to be good in your job, but if no one recognizes, it's very tough to find your own way. 2 years ago, I was nominated to join the Global Entrepreneur Program for Swiss Re in Guatemala. For the first time, I was able to combine my entrepreneurial leadership skills with my interest in foreign cultures and make an impact on the sustainable development goals. I was co-founding a business plan which allowed to build sustainable bamboo houses for families in need. For the first time, I really felt that I clearly worked on an important topic close to my heart with a clear purpose, which made an impact. This is what I advise always to my mentees. Go outside of your comfort zone. These learnings are sometimes not easy, but these are important. You just develop outside. If you take on new risk, show yourself, inspire, engage, show a bit your personality with a self-startership and not being afraid to fail. There is no failure. You can just gain experiences and make it your own way.
It is an honor to accept this award, which recognizes my contribution to the industry doing what I love. I am joining an exceptional list of talented professionals, and I'm grateful to Business Insurance for holding this Women to Watch 2021 award. When I started in the London market nearly 20 years ago, I do not remember feeling limited by my gender. What I do remember is discovering a fascinating new world that offered opportunities to learn and hone my professional skills. As I progressed in my career, I started noticing less and less women in the meetings I attended, and although I didn't feel that held me back, I started thinking that it was odd for the status quo to be quite so unbalanced. Throughout my career, I noticed time and time again that diverse teams bring a great deal of benefits to businesses. I have learned firsthand how powerful teamwork can be when people trust each other and work collegiately to achieve goals together. I hope that the new generations of women considering a career in insurance can see the opportunities available to them in our industry. It is an exciting place to be, and as a working mother, I wouldn't be able to leave my children to go and work if I wasn't so passionate about what I do. So I guess the old question of whether we can have it all comes up a lot for working mothers, and I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that. I can only share that I do my best every day to balance priorities and needs. Some days they all flow smoothly, other days they just don't, and that's okay too. Sometimes we have to accept failure and get back on our feet. Resilience is a powerful tool to have in your kit. Speaking of tools, I certainly don't have any secret recipe, but I can share what worked for me. I worked hard to make sure I excelled in the tasks I was given. I took opportunities that were presented to me, choosing the ones where I was confident I would learn something new. And I focused on what mattered the most, trying to cut out the noise around me. And while we realize that we don't have enough role models to represent the diversity we aspire to achieve, I've been lucky to admire a fair few male and female executives in our industry who lead with empathy, compassion, and an inclusive approach, on top of having remarkable leadership skills. There are two people I want to single out. One is Dawn Miller, who is an exceptional executive and a force for good in our industry. She has always believed in my potential, encouraging me to challenge myself and see the bigger picture. And the other is Shannon Williams, who leads our global financial alliance community, providing smart, balanced, and thoughtful direction. He also contributes to the D&I agenda meaningfully and has offered me many opportunities to thrive. I want to thank my current employer, Allianz, for the trust and support they provide to me, and also thanks to my stellar team who inspire me every day. They are a great source of pride for me. Last but not least, my 2 children and my husband are behind everything I do, and I hope to continue making them proud. In closing, I want to encourage everyone to keep their faith in building a future that is ever more inclusive. If we all care about this, we can make great changes happen. Many thanks for listening to me.
I am absolutely thrilled to have been selected by Business Insurance as a woman to watch, an honor to become member of such an exclusive group of talented women. I have always been passionate about my profession, and this prestigious award acknowledges years of hard work and dedication. When I began my career years ago, few women worked in the insurance industry. However, I never felt this would be an obstacle. At times, it may have been a disadvantage, but I am sure it had pushed me to work harder, and in the end, over the years, I have been able to bring in diverse thinking in a work environment dominated by men, and of this I am proud. Today, as this award shows, women are very present in our sector at all levels, and to boost this trend moving forward, we must push all men and women in our industry to promote well-balanced teams, support the future of women, and offer equal development opportunities for all. Teamwork is one of the most important keys to success. Work with this in mind, promoting an environment that encourages the appreciation of the work carried out by other colleagues, and furthering engagement and collaboration among them. I also encourage you to work on your resilience, as it is one of the key traits of successful professionals. It is the capacity to endure adversity, at the same time to transform these challenges into growth opportunities, becoming stronger and more confident as a result. And the good news is that we can all learn to be more resilient. Don't be afraid to embrace new challenges. Be curious and look for opportunities in all directions. Keep a growth mindset and make the most of the many opportunities that you will find along the way. If you strive to overcome obstacles, approach problems with optimism and foresight, and stay focused, you will be able to build a successful career, and most importantly, you will enjoy the journey to get there. In a nutshell, my message to you today, in particular to all the women in our industry, is the following. Believe in yourself, work your resilience and growth mindset. Look for the opportunities, and if necessary, ask for them. Support other women, but of course not forgetting our male colleagues. Enjoy your professional career, making sure you take care of yourself and maintain a good balance with your personal life. We have a very important role to play in our industry, and we can't miss out on this opportunity.
Hi, I am Carole Etchebarn, Directrice Générale at Sedgwick. I want to thank Business Insurance for this very special recognition and the opportunity it provides to advance industry issues and the talented people who are a part of it. In my current role, I am responsible for managing Sedgwick's operation in France and driving innovations throughout business, clients, and people operations. Like you, I know firsthand the challenges that these past few years have brought. And I'm proud to be here with you today, having emerged as a stronger leader and optimistic about the opportunities that lie before us. I could tell you about all the things I have done successfully with my teams over the last 3 years, and believe me, there are many. But I think that what you need to hear and what can be useful for you is more personal. Did I have doubts? Yes. And I think, as most of you do, and as many more men in the same situations do. Do I still doubt and question myself? Yes, every day. How did I get there? And are there any magic recipes? I don't know, but I do believe that you should always be on the lookout for opportunities, embrace change with positivism, and above all, stay yourself. In any case, all the others are taken, aren't they? I believe that success is a team effort, and that as a leader, my contribution is to enable colleagues to do their best. I spend more than half of my work time listening to them and helping them and find solutions and implementing them, and they are the best for it. In many cases, this involves outlining, prioritizing hundreds of small steps and goals with an eye toward the collective impact that these enhancements would have on the futures. And more than anything, these past 2 years allowed a time for reflection in which I came to appreciate the talent, the commitment and empathy of those who comprise Sedgwick, and more broadly, those who make us the industry. At Sedgwick, we talk about caring count and how that philosophy defines our business and drives the decision we make. At the end of the day, our success is determined by our ability to help others when something unexpected has happened to them and at a time of their greatest need. It is with great optimism that I approach the future, and it's with great humility that I accept this award. But of course, I offer it to all Sedgwick Friends people as their amazing work is rewarded today. Thank you all.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Herrera and I work for Tokyo Marine HCC. If I had to provide advice to young women considering a career in the insurance industry, based on my experience, I would say that you need to do your job very well. You need to excel at what you do. You need to know what is expected from you, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and apply all your energy to becoming excellent at your job. To do this, you need to know the expectations very well, really ask for feedback and listen to it, and try to learn as much as you can. Learn from job experiences, from senior members of the team, and also try to find a mentor, a more senior person in the company who will guide you. You also need to find your own growth opportunities. Do not wait for someone to offer these, but try to find them for yourself. You need to become an expert in your field. Another thing is to learn how to think strategically. You need to know where you are in the company, understand what is happening around you, understand the context. Where is your department? What is your department's plans? What is the company's plans? And always try to align your interests with those of your department and with the company. That way you will always provide added value. Also, visibility is very important. You often get noticed by doing your job very well, but in many cases you will need to work for your own visibility. On top of becoming an expert in your field, you need to be recognized as such within the company and outside the company too. This also means that you need to pay attention to networking. Networking is very important because it will get you to learn from other people and you might be provided with opportunities you wouldn't have seen otherwise. Finally, I would advise that you learn to take risks. By taking risks, you have to be ready to lose. Learn how to take failure and think what lessons you have learned, but really put your focus and your attention on the lessons to be learned. That is very important. I think with all this in mind, you're set for success.
I'm really grateful for this recognition. I want to say thank you to those who nominated me for their kind words and support. I'm thankful to work at a company who want to recognise and promote females in the industry, and awards like this are vital to continuing the fight for diversity and equality. Throughout my career, I've been fortunate to work with great leaders and teammates, including previous Women to Watch winners. They've been essential to my own development and have set such strong examples of how we should help and promote others in the industry and work together. Encouraging and supporting other females has been one of the most valued and enjoyable takeaways I've had from my mentors. It has inspired my drive to promote others where I can, helping younger generations to fulfil their potential. And I really look forward to nominating future candidates and watching their success in the industry.
Hello everyone, I'm Sally Lake and I'm the CFO of Beazley. I want to say a big thank you for being chosen as one of the women to watch. It is such an honour. As someone who struggles with accolades, I am still getting my head around it. I want to thank all the people, including all the women, men, and people who do not conform to a particular gender, who have supported and continue to support me on my career journey. This doesn't just include all my colleagues at work, but it wouldn't be possible to talk about this award without recognising the people outside of the workplace who help me doing my job a possibility. As we all know, it takes a village. I wanted to give a special thank you to Luann Layton, a previous woman to watch, although I don't think we've ever stopped watching Luann. She has encouraged me in this space and is always working with me, as well as many other women across Beazley and throughout the insurance sector, to be more confident, to be more forward, and to put ourselves out there. It isn't something that comes naturally to many of us, and that's why people like Luann are so important in this regard. When I took on my role in May 2019, I had absolutely no idea what it would be like. And boy, was I clueless. The world very quickly turned upside down and continues to be uncertain for all of us. Women leaders have been more important than ever, bringing different perspectives, thought and empathy to very difficult situations that we have all been placed in, whilst at the same time needing to make some tough calls under enormous pressure. All of this whilst often caring for our children, homeschooling them. For me, I did maths, my husband did everything else, as well as often looking after the elderly or vulnerable relatives that we have. The last 18 months has been truly awful, with many of us losing loved ones or being isolated from them. I hope and feel very strongly that we can take so much good out of this bad situation and ensure that all the positives stay going forwards. For me, the power of female leadership has been proven more than ever, and I hope we continue to progress across all industries on this front. Thank you and goodbye.
Hello, I'm Jane March and greetings from South Africa. I'm extremely honoured to be a recipient of this award and for the recognition it brings. Like many, I was one of those who fell into insurance, but it has offered me many career opportunities. In insurance, not only do you learn about insurance, but you learn about your clients' industries as well. I was a mining specialist for many years, and I think I can safely say I'm one of the few women that has been 3.7 kilometers underground. I have traveled the world and met many interesting people. I would like to thank MMC for the opportunities they have given me and for their investment in me. While I have worked for the same company for 21 years, I have performed a number of different roles, each one an advancement on the previous one. My most recent appointment is as Chief Executive Officer for Guy Carpenter & Company, South Africa. I would like to thank Spiros Vaturos, the CEO of Marsh South Africa, for supporting my career during this time and for the opportunity to move into Guy Carpenter, which he fully supported, even though I know it would give him a headache on the other side. For those of you starting out in your careers, I would like to suggest you own your own career. Take every opportunity that is given to you. Others can open doors, but it is up to you to step through them and continue your own journey. Whatever role you are doing, do it to the best of your ability with a positive attitude, and you will see the advancement. Your career will not be without challenges. This is to be understood. Look at COVID. We in South Africa went home in March 2020 to work there for 3 weeks. We are still not fully back in the office. Women had to juggle their careers, the workload with that, their families, schools were closed, they had to look after their children, and well done to all of you. I have been extremely fortunate to have a husband and daughter that have supported my career, and I thank them. However, they did move me into a separate room when we were all working from home because of the number of Zoom calls that I had. As an industry, we have been extremely resilient during this period. We adapted, we changed the way we worked, and we moved on. I think the next challenge coming will be to get everyone working from the office now we're used to working at home. I believe the insurance industry is an industry where women can excel and compete on an equal footing. Don't forget, as you advance through your career, to offer others beneath you opportunities as well. And to quote my boss when I was giving him an update on what I have been doing since I became CEO, he told me, don't forget to enjoy it as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen Stanway, Women to Watch Foundation board member and 2018 honoree. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce this fireside chat called The Future of Work. This is brilliantly hosted by Sabine van der Linden, who is CEO and Managing Director of Alchemy Crew, and similarly delighted to work with her as a Women to Watch Foundation board member and an honoree. The two panelists here on this fireside chat are my social media heroes. One day I hope to meet them in person, but this is such a great way to hear from Danielle Guzman and Theodora Lau. So very much looking forward to hearing what they're going to speak about, from female founders to venture capital, purpose-driven work, economic mobility, reskilling and upskilling, as well as those individuals that are driving the change and not waiting for change to happen to them. Really looking forward to listening. Promises to be a lively debate, and I hope you enjoy it.
So hi, everyone. I'm Sabine van der Linden, CEO and Managing Director of Alchemy Crew, and also a Women to Watch Foundation board member. I am thrilled to host this fireside chat with two renowned fintech influencers and respected voices in finance and insurance. So I would like to introduce you to Danielle Guzman, head of social media at Mercer, who is also an expert at activating employees and creating impact from social media, and Theo Lau, founder of Unconventional Ventures. Theo is an author, and we'll go through the book Beyond Good, right? Which addresses some of the major societal issues we all need to pay attention to today. Theo is a public speaker. Theo has a podcast. Theo has so many things going on and advising as well startups, which I love because this is my passion too. So with no further ado, let's get Theo and Danielle to give us a little bit of background around each of them, as we want to cover the future of work and beyond good as well, and how we can create magic in the world we are in, new and never normal. So I'll start with you, Danielle.
All right, go ahead.
So what are, tell us a bit more about you. What are the things which are important to you, and what is the journey you have been on for the past years, I guess?
A big question, Sabine. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's quite an honor. My focus, as you shared, is really about the future of work. It's something that I'm passionate about personally and professionally. And the journey over the past years has been about reinventing myself and how to stay relevant in a world that is changing so radically. And when we think about the pandemic, it's only accelerated that journey now on a mass scale, not just for me, but for everyone to really be thinking about this a lot more, and using platforms like social media and other channels to be able to be continuously learning, applying, and making a difference. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to find ways to connect with individuals and communities and organizations to try and create a world into the future that is a place where I'm proud to have helped my daughter become a part of. and to think of the ways that we can just do that in small incremental steps every day. You mentioned the book Beyond Good, which to me is it's a Bible. And there's so many small aspects in there that we can kind of take in bite sizes and apply. And that's the way I like to look at everything, is not so much the big changes all at once, but the way we can make small incremental changes that have a compound return over time.
Thank you, Daniel. Theo, what about you? What has been your journey?
Wow. Okay. How do I follow? You're a tough follow, Daniel. So my journey has been actually interesting. Daniel, you talked about changing course and transforming. So my background is actually engineering, chemical engineering, and born, raised, went to school, came from academic backgrounds, and interested about science, always about science, and then I spent the bulk of my career, actually more than 15 years, in telecom. So I did not come from finance and didn't come from banking. I always tell people, please do not hold that against me. But what has been really interesting, if you look at high tech, you look at telecom, you look at financial services industry or fintech and insurtech startup, a lot of what we do inherently at the end of the day is about people. Right? Technology is a means to an end. Just like the three of us right now, we are at 3 different cities connecting together. Whatever platform that it is that we're using, at the end of the day is about the 3 of us conversing and exchanging ideas. And that's what's fascinating. That's what I love about what we do, is how to use technology for good, in a sense, to connect people, to spread ideas, to help uplift voices that otherwise didn't have a mic. And that's what I've always been interested in. And I've been very privileged to be able to do that and do something that I like, and to have a wonderful partner in crime to be part of it, to write the book and to do our work. What I have learned, I think, in the past almost 2 years now, gosh, losing track of when we started the lockdown, we might be in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. I think if that's how I were to summarize the past 18, 19 months, is we have been very aware of a lot of the challenges and inequalities that exist in our society, right? But I think, if anything, I hope that we will take away the learning from recent months, is that there are lots more that we need to do. There are a lot of children who do not have access to the internet, that we are creating a lost generation. There are a lot of women who have multiple duties, right? We talk about third shift that a lot of women have to do just to keep their households and keep the families safe and keep the kids fed and all of that. We need to do more, creating a support structure for all of these people, or essential workers that, we like to call them, because we're sitting at home and waiting for deliveries. Well, they also need help too. So I hope, if we were to take away anything, and to be able to grow from it, and that will be that lesson, that we are in it together.
And important. So you mentioned a path from telecom to, being one of the major influencer in fintech, reminding us every day of our purpose and, why we are here, whether it's fintech, wealth tech, health tech, insurtech, as, women, and hopefully voices where we can actually share what we learn in our own way. But so you already went into the past 18 months and what we've seen around some of the lessons that we need to start remembering. Danielle, is there anything else you want to add to some of the commentary from Theo around the past 18 months?
That's a great question. So I think the past 18 months, beyond the obvious, when I think back, the first thing that comes to mind is that there is so much joy in the ordinary. I think we've taken so much time in our lives to be rushing here, there, commuting, achieving goals, that we have not stopped to realize what is at our fingertips, what is around us in our community, whether it's family, whether it's a broader community, the places we live. We take all of that for granted. I live in New York. People come to New York every single day to visit New York. I work in Times Square at Rockefeller Center. People travel from across the globe to come there. I go to the office, I grab lunch, I go back in the office, I go home. I don't even pause to look at these beautiful landmarks that people come to visit. So now it's a matter of reflecting on that, thinking, wow, I have this at my doorstep. So I think the simple joy of the ordinary. The next is the idea that family matters. Again, how many of us would used to commute to the office or travel the globe for what we do personally and professionally, and maybe not be there for meals every day, maybe not be there for that first milestone or that birthday party, or maybe seeing, your grandparents more frequently. These small aspects of family life, whether it's your close-knit family, your second generation, etc. The idea that is ultimately the most important thing in our lives. And I think the past 8 months has really helped us to realize that. And I think the last thing that I kind of think about now is, as a broader society, I think we're not there yet, but we're starting to really realize that self-care is actually not self-indulgent. The fact, the conversations around well-being and mental health are now becoming what they should be. We've always talked about health, and it's embedded into every aspect of our lives. But when we start talking about mental health or taking time to invest in our own well-being, that's always like a second thing, or it's maybe something that is not as mainstream. And I think that it's critical that now, through organizations and ourselves and leaders, that is becoming a very real and daily conversation at the table.
So you are touching around some major societal challenges. And Theo, I would like to take a quote from your great book. Change will not come if we wait for some other person, or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are the change that we see, from Barack Obama. So when you look at some of your path and learnings, writing this great book, what are some of the biggest existential challenges we need to pay attention to today?
Wow, that is a big question. How much time do you need? I think there are quite a few, and some of them we are very familiar with. So one of the topics, the biggest topic that I'm also interested in, got me into this path with fintechs and financial services, is one of longevity. Longevity is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. So one of the topics we've written quite a bit about is the fact that, from the early 1900s, we have all collectively gained an extra 30 healthy living years, right? It's hard to imagine that, put that in context. But if we just take a step back and look at, how we're living our lives with our career and raising children and all that, compare that to our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation, right? We have changed quite a bit. And a lot of that came from because of the fact that we're all living longer. That affords us different opportunities to try different things at different parts of our career. So, for example, we started the company in conventional ventures when I was in mid-40s, right? And this is something that probably was not common given 20, 30 years ago. But now people do pivot in their career quite a bit. And so if we start thinking about the fact that we have an extra 30 years, then the next logical question would be, what would you like to do with that extra 30 years? Are you going to be working 30 extra years? Ouch. How do we make our retirement nest last longer? And what does retirement even mean, right? And so there's a professor with this wonderful book, Talk About 100-Year Life, where he helped us reimagine our life. Instead of the normal 3-stage, you go to school, and then you work, and then you retire. Somewhere along the way, you have a family. What if it becomes a mini cycle, right? In development, software development, we think about agile development instead of waterfall. What if we treat our lives the same way? What if we learn, we work, we start a family, and then you go and relearn new skills? That's something that Danielle likes to talk about a lot, future of work. How do we upskill and reskill ourselves? Do something else, maybe take a break in the middle and go back and do it again. So what I see as what some people would say is a challenge of living longer, I would like for us to rethink longevity and turn it into an opportunity for us to try something different. And then alongside with that, then you start thinking about working. What if you have multiple generations of people working alongside each other? What if you have multiple generations of your family living alongside each other? Will that change the family dynamics? And think about how we should live our lives. Will that change how we think about corporate structure and how we let people work and take different forms of working, more flexible arrangements for them to be able to take advantage of longevity? So that is one of the biggest thing I think face all of our societies today, some more so than the others. And it will prompt us to start thinking about our social support infrastructure and everything along with it. How do we help take advantage of what's in front of us?
Very wise. And whilst you were talking, Theo, I was seeing myself, went to school, changed country for my education, worked for amazing companies. But, one thing which is consistent is being a self-learner, rebuilding oneself and learning new skills and pushing the boundaries, because nothing stops really, which I guess, Danielle, you see that every day when you're actually reshaping our working future, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I resonated with so much of what you were saying, Theo, and especially the idea of we grew up, or I grew up at least, in a generation where you have a career. And now we are a part of this transformation where we actually have career experiences. And to your point, right, this cyclical cycle. And there's so much, though, that needs to be done for that to actually become accessible to everyone. Right now, I think all of us read every single day. Organizations are trying to understand, how do we rebuild for the future? Do we do hybrid? Do we do distributed? Do we do virtual, in the office? Like, there's no answer right now. And I think organizations are trying to figure that out. And to me, that is one of the biggest, it's a watershed moment actually for the future of work. It's one of the biggest changes that we will probably see in our lifetime. And we're at the beginning of that journey. But something else that you mentioned here was that at the crux of that is one of the things that I think has really elevated and surfaced is the concept of just trust. And regardless of what comes in the future, trust is such a massive part of this journey now. And it's at the core of every relationship, whether it's personal or professional. But even now, as we reinvent ourselves, it becomes kind of fundamental, because we need these relationships. We no longer leave a job and move to the next job. And because you don't know if you may come back as a boomerang employee, you don't know if you may come back as a gig employee, you don't know if you may start a business with someone from that previous firm. So the idea that we close chapters and open chapters is kind of gone. And it's now all one big narrative. And I think that's exciting. And it does also require us to be much more present in what we do every day. And historically, people go to a job, they're there for 25 years, and to your point, they retire. Well, now we need to be thinking about every month, every quarter, why am I here? Is this still meeting my purpose? Have my goals changed? And if yes, take action. And if no, then we continue on the journey. But I just think a lot of work is now becoming much more mindful than it has been in the past. And I love your emphasis on as well on the 5 generations. Because I think that unlocks so much opportunity, both in an organization, in the whole kind of future of work, but then also with society. There's so many unconscious biases around the different generations, and one generation should be doing X and the next should be doing Y. Yet this allows us to unpack all the opportunities that we have if we actually come together. And I think that is something that we're starting to see come through the way organizations are activating and inspiring workplace culture. And there's a lot more that needs to be understood and done in that facet, but I do believe that we're on the beginnings of something really exciting.
So it's interesting because when I talk to my godchildren, my Gen Z godchildren, what you find is that everything they do has a purpose, even when they use social media and they get their auntie to be cooler to use like Instagram. And it's fascinating because for them, they would not make any choices without purpose, I think now. Even when I interview, youngsters who want to come and work with us, they ask me about my sustainability strategy, and they don't even want the perks. They actually want a project which give them purpose. So I think, as you said, there's a change around why we go to work. And, many of us and many of them will have 7, 8, 10 different jobs in a very short period of time. So my question to you both, starting with Theo, so what does that mean, from a reflection viewpoint as to where we are going, whether we look at founders, entrepreneurs, the wonderful woman in insurance, and executive in insurance who are trying to define what's next for them, how they build a career, how they make choices which are fulfilling them for the long term?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there are two different sides we need to look at, and I feel that we're not doing it enough. One side is from the idea side, right? Are we creating new solutions to support the changes and the challenges and the opportunities that we see, right? So for example, we just talked about longevity. We talked about people doing more transient gig work. But if we take a step back and look at financial services, looking at incumbent providers or fintech startups, the new solutions that are being created, are they being created to mimic what we have always had in the past? Or are they being created to support these new opportunities? Are there enough solutions out there to support small business owners? I would say we need more. Do we have good solutions out there to support gig workers, right? How they plan their lives and how they don't have access to benefits. We need to help them take care of the taxes and all of those. We need more solutions to support that. And same with longevity. Are we creating different solutions for people to plan for multi-generational, for living longer, working longer? Or are we just creating solutions for people who already have assets, right? So that is what I feel like we need to do more of. And then on the other side, Sabine, like what you touched on, the founders, the people who give these ideas, the people who give life to the opportunities that we need to focus on, are we doing enough of that, right? So take a step back and look at what we have collectively experienced together. We have seen massive amounts of funding that goes to fintech startups, right? Record breaking. And yet, if we look at the amount of funding that goes into female founders, the percentage is at the lowest it has been in the past 5 years. 2.2% of the entire bucket of money goes to female founders. My question will then be, why, right? It's not because of lack of awareness that we need more diversity and different ideas in the space. It's not because of lack of money, because clearly there's a lot going around. So why is it that we have yet to see significant changes to the makeup of the boards, to the makeup of founders, to the makeup of solutions that we have in our industry, right? So, because you cannot be what you cannot see. And this is why we say representation matters. It's not just about gender. It's not just about ethnicity. It's also about socioeconomic backgrounds. It's about ideas you represent and give life to. We need to do more of that.
And I want to highlight that during this weekend, you actually shared an article which showed the top 10 investors investing in women, which was actually quite interesting. And as you say, still today, the founding in women, entrepreneurs who are actually doing great things is still, very low. But still, there are a few organizations who recognize that. And I think they need to build that in strategy for them to be able to make an impact. What would be your view, Danielle?
I think you kept asking why, Theo. And as you're saying why, I was thinking to myself, it's a really big hurdle to move from traditional kind of tick the box learning or tick the box approaches to accomplishing things to actually focusing on helping people understand why. Meaning, we look at things like, you're right, there's been so much conversation, investment, effort, even arguably into kind of closing the gender gap or into diversity inclusion efforts in organizations, but yet it still doesn't close the gap. There's something not clicking. There's something not connecting. We're trying to hire more diversely, yet we still see areas underrepresented and not part of the conversation. And I don't have the answer. But one of the things I do often see is a lot of the ways that we teach these ways of being or acting are all kind of essentially tick the box, or I've completed this. And so you learn it for a moment in time, but then you go back to your old behaviors. And we need to start thinking about, if we look at kids, right? Everything they learn is kind of situational. There's context around it. It's real situations in which they're learning. And then you associate with that and you carry that forward. So how can we apply that so that ourselves, our colleagues, wider audiences in society can really do something in a much more collaborative and connected way that helps everyone understand and feel, what that situation is like, and then how they can help make that difference. I think until we don't start investing into that way of thinking and applying, it's going to be really tough, because I can do those trainings and be done in an hour and then just move on with my day. I haven't changed anything about my behavior, and behavior change is going to be foundational for us to be able to start shifting. And you mentioned a little bit about the gig economy as well. And I don't know if we've really stopped to think before the pandemic how massive a change that alone is. I mean, I read a stat that by 2027, more than 50% of the US workforce is going to be participating in the gig economy. That's massive. And if you stop to think about, most organizations currently don't have the underlying operating infrastructure to be able to provide healthcare benefits or other access to the same resources that a full-time employee has. So that's just one example, but there's so many. And then you think about the unconscious bias in that we always say, oh, that's a vendor. Oh, that's a consultant. Oh, he or she's an employee. There's a lot that unpacks behind that. And when we think about the fact that what it means to work and showing up to work now should be, we need equity across all facets of that. And we're not there yet. It's starting to become more prominent, and organizations are starting to explore that, but it's a big shift. And it's not just at a company level, it's everything. It's the healthcare systems. There's so many different aspects that need to be considered and looked at. So I'm hoping that through the past 18 months, it's really helped us to start to think about this in a much deeper way and in a connected way. It's no longer about it's about we, all of us together. We are surviving and making it through this pandemic collectively as one global organization. And how can we apply that same connected behavior and momentum towards attacking some of these other big societal issues?
I'd like to continue on this conversation around what we are missing. And I will quote another great quote from Theo's book. So we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry. And we must understand that all of the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter their color, equal in importance, no matter their texture. Maya Angelou. So that takes me to, therefore, a question around polarities. And I think we started approaching the question during our conversation already, where I would love for you to talk about the polarity of diversity versus inclusion, equity versus equality, and also looking at economic mobility. I think you touch upon in your book as well, Theo, around the two economies. So let's get started with you, Theo.
Yeah, it is an important topic for all of us, I believe, because it concerns all of us, right? When we talk about diversity, we can't just talk about diversity without inclusion. And we cannot talk about diversity and inclusion without talking about equity. I think they're all intertwined. And I would add that even the latest topic around sustainability, ESG, there is a bit of a DEI included in that, because diversity, inclusion, sustainability is not just about the environment. It's not just about green climate, green energy. It's also about having sustainable business models. To talk about sustainable business models and a sustainable future, we need to think about the people that are part of that economy. And that's what brings us to diversity, inclusion, equity. One of the my favorite analogy to why equity is important is think of runners, and Danielle, you wouldn't know this. In the tracks, if you start off in the same spot, those in the inner circle will run less, and those in the outer circle have longer distance to cover. And that's why they don't start in the same spot. And that's exactly what we need to think about equity in the United States, and actually in a lot of different places. Where you end up still very much depends on your skin color, your race, your zip code, the schools that you go to, and that dictates the social circle you're in, and that changes the opportunities you get exposed to and the experience you have. And it changes all across the board. And especially, I would say, given the last 20, 30 years, economic inequality within the United States have gone up so high that the US is the one developed economy that has the largest inequality, economic inequality. And to us, and to me personally, economic equality should be a human right. It is a human right. Access to very basic food, shelter, and water, and broadband internet, that should also be a right, because without that, it's really hard to be able to break out from the mini community that you grow up on, and to have access to be able to advance your ideas and to do all the other things that a lot of us take for granted, right? And so, Danielle, to your point, it cannot just be a check in the box, say, oh, you have a panel of 10 people, I have one woman of color in here represented, and I'm done. It's not that. Right? You actually need to be able to incorporate ideas from different people. And this is actually where I feel how we have been working, how a lot of us have sheltered ourselves, for lack of better words, behind a screen in the last 18 months, have hurt some of the communities that are marginalized, because either A, they do not have access to the internet, or they do not have access to the network. And so as all of us retreat back from social communities, they don't have access to the people to tap into to get ideas. And that was one of the challenges I hear from people. A couple of years ago, it would be, well, I had to physically move myself to the Silicon Valley so that I can be closer to investors and closer to developers. I've gotten a lot of calls like that. And lately, it has been about, well, everyone is inundated with emails, with LinkedIn intros and all of that. No one is returning my messages because I don't have that community to tap into, right? So this is the whole digital transformation in our lives have created a different type of challenge that I hope that when we start thinking about hybrid work, when we start thinking about different forms of working and not having your normal water cooler conversation, that we have other means for people to tap into and still create that vibrant community that we need.
Danielle, what's your view? I mean, so wise. I'm posing because you're talking about digital societies, and it's true, this is going to affect a lot of people. And, people who are not front and center, who do not have the social networks, when you actually look at the uncertainty of the world we are living in, at the same time, you need to build resiliency to actually continue with whatever you do. You have to understand that digital is there to stay in some ways, and you have to include that as part of your daily life, right, Danielle?
Yeah, I agree. And I love that, you touched a little bit, Theo, on, as a part of this, is the concept of hybrid work. And we have an opportunity, done well, to take the fact that we've got digital, we can now tap into talent anywhere in the world. And it goes both ways. I think, organizations need to break the molds of how they hire today and look beyond to now realize that you can hire from anywhere and hire anyone. And as well, things that we used to see, and we still do see on job descriptions, like you must be able to commute into the office, or there's always these fine prints that but we don't need those anymore. We don't need necessarily that particular role to be able to do that, which opens up the opportunity for all individuals who might fall under certain disabilities that otherwise wouldn't have been able to participate into those conversations. So I think there's so many ways, if we stop to unpack how the lack of proximity enables, and it really requires us, again, to be mindful, intentional, and present in how we change. I also love the whole conversation of equity versus equality. And the reason why is this is something I've had a conversation with my daughter about. It's easy to talk about, but I do wonder how many people genuinely stop, and you talked about that concept of the racetrack, Theo, but how many people genuinely pause to think about what they're doing every day, and are they focused more on equality, perhaps because they don't truly understand the difference, and they think they're doing the right thing? I do wonder that, and it's something that I had a conversation with my daughter about it, and granted she's 9, but it was interesting because she thought it was equity, but it was actually equality. And I tried to help her understand, and I gave her the example of we're under an apple tree, and I'm under the tree and you're under the tree. And we both get a ladder, we get the same ladder, and we're gonna pick apples. And so she thought that was great. We both got a ladder. And I said, okay, so we actually drew a little picture. And she was like, but I can't reach the apples in the picture because she's shorter than I am. I said, but we both got the same ladder. And so it was through that conversation that she finally understood that she needs a bit taller ladder to have the same access to the resources, to have the same opportunities. And so I left that conversation and then had it with another person actually in my colleague community, and we still landed on equality. And it was all with the right intentions. And so I do think that these are really big topics, whether it's diversity, inclusion, equity, equality. I think you also mentioned economic mobility. I think a lot of people think they're doing the right thing. They truly believe it, but and maybe that's part of what's hindering us from moving forward. And we need to kind of unpack those and create a more visual, or just connect on a deeper level as to what it really means. And I do believe people are good. People are inherently good. If they genuinely understand, then change will happen. And it's how do we create that understanding and that connectedness to enable us to start really addressing these big kind of disconnects in society.
So would like to go into more of an opportunity conversation, and you touch upon something very important, Danielle, visualizing how that could be. So I'll start with you. So what are examples of conscious choices we could make to make change happen, to make it stick?
That's a great question, Sabine. It's something that I only recently realized, again, back to my daughter, how I actually play an active role in shaping her belief system and how she chooses and makes decisions. I mean, I've always known that to a certain degree, but I don't think I really stopped to think about how all of us in our roles do that within our families, do that within our social groups, and every action we take has a reaction. So one of the things that we've done at home, and I think we've talked about this in the past, and actually it came up when I read Beyond Good, because there's a section in the book that talks about the way organizations are redefining their purpose and the way that they are building business, but doing good. And I think, Theo, you mentioned purple carrot. I think it was the one that you mentioned in the book. And I've actually done something similar to that one, which is a vegetable-based food delivery system, basically. And I've done this, and we get a box every 2 weeks, not because I have any specific dietary restrictions, but I wanted to just do my little bit to help have a more plant-based lifestyle. There's a lot of benefits to society for that, and the environment. And my daughter sees this, and she knows that I do eat meat, so she questions it. So I hope that by taking these actions, and she is not joining me on this journey, but I hope that over time, though, she is seeing that and she's thinking about why I'm doing this, and I've explained it to her, and that carries forward with her. It may never become a choice of hers, but it causes her to think more before she takes an action. And if we can do that across many ways that we live our lives, whether it's not using plastic bottles and paper cups, or there's so many different ways that we can do that. And then we help the younger generation to be much more thoughtful and mindful as they move forward. And at the same time, we do our part to help them in the future of their lives.
And Theo, what would be your recommendations?
I like that example, Danielle. Mine is also with kids. The interesting thing about having little kids is that it actually teaches us what the importance of our actions and importance of what we say and what we do. So one of the things that I'm always very conscious about, especially the last few years, as the kids are getting a little bit older, is to be aware of what money means, because they're not earning money, right? And they're not working. So the concept of money and what is a $10, what is a $20 is really hard to conceptualize. But yet it's really easy to go spend that and Roblox and all the other games that they have. So what I've done with the kids, and we're actually going to do that this Christmas as well, is to think about people in our class, in their classes, in their communities. For a while, the United States, we still do, have a huge food security crisis. A lot of people do not have enough food to eat. At one point in time, the number was reaching to, I think it was like 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 that are food insecure. And so I was trying to get the kids to visualize, right, the 20-something kids that they have in each of their class. Imagine every day when they start their class, a few of those children are coming to school hungry and not having food to eat, right? And so that relates to think about, what does that mean, Mommy? Well, if we donate to charities, there is a charity that they actually have a sort of a calculator that shows, if you donate $10, that equates, how many meals for kids, right? And so instead of spending that in Roblox, if you donate that, that will equal to how many kids that will have food to eat, that they don't have to go through the weekend hungry, because we actually have kids in a different school in our community that the teachers have to pack food for them on Fridays. So they have food to eat on the weekend. They don't have to starve on Saturday, Sundays when schools are not open. And it shouldn't be. This is the wealthiest country in the entire world. People should not be going to home hungry. People should not be going to sleep without food. And so, what we're doing this Christmas is I told them to each pick a cause that they want to support, right? Either it's clean water, it's refugees, it's food, it's education, anything that they choose, and we'll donate that as our Christmas present. So hopefully it will stick somehow.
Wonderful.
Hope.
That's
I love that. I have to jump in, Sabine, because as I heard Theo, and I had written down a quote, I wrote many quotes actually from your book, Beyond Good, Theo, but one specifically stands out as you say this, and on this topic we're talking about, and it was, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And that was Nelson Mandela. And you added in your book, we add empathy to that now, which provides us with the moral compass to look beyond ourselves. And I think that the story you just told is such a perfect example of that. And it's something I'm going to actually take and carry it forward and see if we can do the same thing here for the Christmas this year.
It's empathy, right? And if you don't have empathy, what are we? We're humans, right?
Absolutely. So coming back to you, Daniel. So what are your 5 recommendations, the 5 actions we can do to pay attention to things? And then I will go to Theo. And thanks everyone for their time today.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, I think we have to be mindful. We have to be present. We must be intentional. We must think of we instead of I. And we need to look at how every action we do creates a reaction and a chain reaction. So to always be thinking of the greater good in all that we do and the ways that it impacts much more than our immediate selves.
Thank you, Daniel. Theo?
Yeah, one of them is the same as Daniel, intentional with our choices. I think that is something we need to think about. Not just, what we read, be intentional about reading something different, who we reach out to, how we respond to things, how we act. We need to be more intentional with what we do. I would say read more. I love reading and reading different things, right? I'm awful at that. Everything I read is nonfiction, but I try to read from different authors. That's one of the things I notice. A lot of the authors that people do recommend on book sites, they're all similar in gender and similar in ethnicity. I would say try to read from different authors from different backgrounds. It's always interesting. Listen more and talk less. I'm awful at that. I need to do better. And just, empathy. I will end with empathy. That is important.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Theo. So I heard empathy, taking care of others. I would add self-confidence, resilience, and determination as well to achieve what we are here to do, beyond good and do it with purpose. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this fire chat.
Good morning, everyone. It really is lovely to be with you this morning. I trust that you really enjoyed the CEO panel and also the fireside discussions. My name is Vera Global. I am the head of underwriting in the UK for AIG, Accident and Health. I'm also the very proud winner of Women to Watch nomination from 2020. It was a wonderful experience for me, both the internal feedback that I received through the nomination process, but also the recommendations from past colleagues and external brokers and stakeholders. It was just a wonderful experience. So I'm very grateful to Business Insurance for giving that to me last year. I'd also like to say a very big congratulations to the smart and hardworking women who have received the nominations for this year. So well done to you all. Across all multinational organizations, and really I would say at every level, whether it's directly or indirectly, we are all constantly striving to improve our approach to risk management, to make it more consistent across the organization, not just within our organization, but the way we engage then with our markets, both within the UK and also internationally. So risk management for us is the core of what we do. And for this reason, I have especially excited to welcome Tiffaine Beauperron to the conference today. Tiffaine is the CEO of FIRMA, which is the Federation of European Risk Associations in Europe. Under her leadership, she brings together risk management associations from no less than 22 national associations, making sure that these associations strive for consistent risk management approaches in order to maximize their impact both within Europe and internationally. Tiffaine has a very impressive list of leadership responsibilities. These include running the FIRMA office in Brussels. She also represents FIRMA with the institutions of the European Union and internationally. She is a member of the Insurance and Reinsurance Stakeholder Group of IOPA, which is the European Insurance and Pensions Association. Prior to joining FIRMA, Tiffaine worked as a lobbyist for Eurochambers, which is the European Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry. She holds a master's degree in European Public Affairs and Management of International Associations. She also has a dual French-English diploma in the Management of International Enterprises. So today, Tiffaine will be talking to us about leadership and purpose, building organizations for people, for the planet, and prosperity. I absolutely love the title of this speech, and I can't wait to hear more. I can't think of a time, definitely in my own life and career coming out of the pandemic, I can't think of a time where we have questioned our purpose in our work more closely, and how we do this. How do we do our work trying to fulfill what we believe is our own purpose? How do we do that with other people who have different senses of their own purpose, and balancing our ambition for prosperity, but still trying to prioritize the needs of the planet. So it's a mouthful for sure, and I can't wait to hear more. So please join me in welcoming Tiffaine Beauperan. Thank you.
Thank you to the Women to Watch Foundation and to Business Insurance for inviting me to take part in this wonderful event, the annual Women to Watch Awards. I'm going to speak to you about our opportunities to develop leadership in our organization, in our new environment, because I strongly believe that the upheavals to working practices created by the pandemic are an enabler for us. Today, we are being called to create sustainable results for our organization in the evolving green and digital environment. We can only do this by focusing on our people and our values. And there are various names, to this approach. And I particularly like the expression people, planet, and performance, which is particularly appropriate during the COP26 UN Climate Change Conference now taking place in Glasgow. I'm going to start with the people element, because I believe that concerns us most directly as women. Traditional working patterns were sometimes frustrating for many of us, but for men as well as for women, and change was coming in tiny steps. Then a big event, the pandemic, lifted us over the threshold into a radically different world. Companies can no longer be run in the same way. Traditional methods of working and office hours had to change. And I like the sentence that I heard once: what was impossible became the possible. We could work from home. Technology meant we no longer had to be in the office to work, to communicate, and to collaborate. And I must say that these changes have broken down a key barrier for women going into senior management positions. They allow a better work-life balance. I believe many men welcome this too. And as the CEO of Ferma, I run a small office in Brussels, but a large network bringing together 22 risk management associations in 21 European countries. We have a board of risk managers from across Europe who volunteer their time to support the profession. I was in the office and at physical meetings, like many of you, almost every day. I had to balance that with the family that I have, a young family, and I also wanted to maintain my learning. Today, I organize myself differently. My days are not linear. They are a mix of work and family-related tasks. In the end, I feel that I'm not running all the time anymore. And you can imagine my family appreciates that too. I have reconciled my different roles as a mom, a leader, and a wife. I spend more quality time with my family because the boundaries between work and home are different, and they change day by day. Of course, we have missed meetings our colleagues at work. At the same time, we got to note them in their private lives, their homes, their kids, sometimes with their pets. We are learning how to maintain our relationship with them in different ways. So almost overnight, the pandemic shifted the attention of business leaders to people. For work to continue, we had to trust our people with remote working. There wasn't really an alternative, but we saw the benefits because centralized, top-down decision-making doesn't create the agility and the ability to act quickly that our organization need in a fast-paced and very complex environment. Instead, we need a diversity of responses and a degree of autonomy for people to respond to challenges and opportunities. This comes not from alpha leaders, as they are called, who deliver instruction for others to follow. It comes through collaboration. And collaboration offers employees the autonomy, the flexibility, and the empowerment they want. It gives meaning to work. So now, trust is the fuel of authority. It leads to excellence and creativity. As leaders, we manage the what the organization is doing and not the how. As leaders, we set the overall purpose and strategic vision with the board. And then we must inspire, guide, and empower staff and invest in collective intelligence. There must be a compelling story about the purpose of the organization and the destination you want it to reach. A story that inspires, touches people, and inspires them to act. The inevitable consequence of this shift in working methods is that the health and the well-being of employees are a core element of the strategy of the organization. And there should be a symmetry of attention between customer focus and employee focus. A good working environment that has people at its heart will be key to sustainable performance. As we know, the COP26 conference is taking place as we meet. We see ever greater demands that businesses contribute to the sustainability of the planet through their activities and through their investments. And this is particularly relevant to the insurance industry as major institutional investor. Legislators and regulators are requiring organizations to think and behave sustainably. Investors are increasingly looking for companies with purpose and values because they see these as a foundation of long-term financial performance. These two will be key to attracting and keeping talent, which was already a major consideration for business leaders before the pandemic. I spoke at the start about people as being a core element in this sustainable business model. Increasingly, the aspiration of employees have been changing, especially among the younger generation. They want to see their employers accepting wider responsibilities for the environment, for diversity, for fairness, and they want their leaders to follow through on promises. I've been speaking largely about companies. While I work as a CEO for a non-for-profit association, I can see increasingly convergences between us. I've been working in the European Association for nearly all my career, and I'm passionate about this sector. We have the advantage that our organizations are already purpose-driven. Of course, that does not mean that we have no challenges. Associations are unique organizations. They exist because of their members. They meet their needs and achieve common goals. Our members are our owners, our experts, and our clients. Our direction comes from volunteers who are our board members and members of our association. They're usually at a high level in their profession. They're extremely knowledgeable, but have little time. Leadership in an association requires a specific set of competencies and skills, ranging from strategy support to operations. You also need a good dose of soft skills to lead a small team and interact with a large multinational network. This is thrilling and demanding at the same time. I do not have the same type of financial performance targets that many of you have, but I have other drivers. As CEO, a key question for me is how to maintain our relevance for our 22 member associations, but also for the individual risk managers who are the members and for our other stakeholders. Our mission is to support risk management and the risk management profession in Europe and represent our members' interest with the European institution. Our office is small and we have a modest budget to fulfill this purpose, but we need and we rely on our members to stay engaged and contribute their time and knowledge to this work. Unlike employees, they don't get paid for doing this, but it is still to provide a value for them which is important, for example, in the form of networking or career development. So I really see parallels between what I do and those of leading a more human-driven model for a business. We are not just giving a what to our activities, but a why. The Women to Watch Awards recognize achievement in risk management and insurance. So I'd like to finish with a few thoughts on the role of leadership in these sectors. The pandemic certainly put a spotlight on risk management and insurance. For most organizations, the risk manager has been a leader or a collaborator in crisis management. Many risk managers have been involved in working with HR, for example, on the implication of remote work. Their contribution has been acknowledged, and it is opening the door to wider engagement. We are living through a period of great change, including, as we have said, in our business model and working patterns. More uncertainty is a natural consequence, and making uncertainty measurable and manageable is what risk managers do. Risk management was already a cross-organization role that performs effectively by collaborating with other functions. It will continue to help organizations build resilience so they can take advantage of the opportunities provided by the green and digital environment. Sustainability has always been the purpose of the risk manager. And insurance is the closest and longest established business partner for the corporate risk manager. I believe insurance does not need to look for a new purpose. It has always had a valued one. It has served companies and society by providing an essential buffer to damaging financial losses and a source of knowledge about risk. Today, the insurance market is grappling with a severe challenge to this traditional role because the exposures to that organization face have exploded. By itself, the private market cannot assume all the consequences of systemic risks generated by climate change, cyber risk, or global pandemic. Yet, this risk must be mitigated, and the financial consequences have to be managed. The insurance industry has great knowledge and experience to contribute to solutions, which I believe can come through public-private partnerships. To conclude, I hope the release of creativity sparked by the profound changes that we have just been discussing will result in leadership in the insurance industry that will help find ways to mitigate this risk. As working women who are better able to balance the different aspects of our lives, we can deploy our talents and be an authentic leader. Thank you for listening, and congratulations to the Women to Watch Awards winners.
Hi, I'm Ali Kunlevan. I'm the International Insurance Lead for Google. I'd like to thank Business Insurance very much for recognizing me as a woman to watch in 2021. It's quite difficult doing these recorded acceptances. So I was helping myself to a cup of coffee, and it only just occurred to me that this is an excellent mug to be using. I don't know if you can read it, but it says, "Behind every successful woman is another successful woman." That's certainly true of my career. And at every stage where I've had a significant progression, there has been a powerful woman there. In fact, one of them is also an award winner this year, based in the US, Shelley Yim. She was instrumental in helping me understand how different the culture was in the US, and particularly Hawaii, when I moved there. And she really helped me settle in and establish a fantastic team in the Hawaii office there. So for those of you who are just starting your career, what are the important things that will help? Yes, finding those key mentors will really be fundamentally helpful. However, there are other things that I would recommend as well. Travel. Go and spend time in other parts of the world. Find out the risks that are faced there, the impact of those risks, the people, their beliefs, their values. All of that will help you diversify and innovate later in your career. I'd also say don't specialize too early. Make sure you experience as much as you can of what our industry offers before you decide what you're going to do for the rest of your career, because you need to pick something you're passionate about, something you can become an industry leader on, and something that makes you indispensable and a leader of many to come. And my final ask would be, as you make it up that rather slippery ladder, turn around and see who's following you and how you can help them too.
Hello, my name is Hayley Robinson and I'm the Chief Underwriting Officer for Zurich Insurance. 2021 has been a really successful year for me, professionally speaking. I'm deeply honoured to have been nominated for this award. And in July, I was promoted to the Chief Underwriting Officer role. When I started in insurance as a graduate trainee, I never dreamt that I could end up being a Chief Underwriting Officer. But what I did through my career was hold fast to 3 principles. The first was always to develop my knowledge and skill, and to maintain that knowledge and skill to be relevant for the jobs I was doing and to prepare me for the next step. Secondly, I've made sure that I've taken opportunities when they have arisen. And some of those opportunities haven't always been the things I'd thought of. They didn't always seem logical. But on thinking about them, I could see how they were making me grow and develop as an individual. And the third principle was to make sure that I changed and adapted as the world around me changed. There's been a huge amount of change in the world and in insurance in the last 20 years. And part of that change and adaptation has helped me equally in my career. If I were giving advice to my younger self, I would have said 2 things. Firstly, build your network. Make sure that you find people who will help you develop and grow, and people who will challenge you, support you, and give you advice. And finally, I would have said to myself, just be you. I spent 20 years trying to mould myself into somebody different. And once I'd stopped doing that, I realised that just being me gave me the confidence I needed.
Hello everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to say a very big thank you indeed to Business Insurance for this award. And I'd also like to congratulate all the other very worthy recipients. It's a shame that we can't be together today to celebrate, but I do hope at some point in the future we might have the opportunity to meet in person. I think if you're fortunate enough to receive an award like this, it's really an opportunity to reflect on who and what has helped you to arrive at this point in your career. And more importantly, maybe to try and make sure that you're providing that same help and encouragement to those who are following in your footsteps. I've been fortunate enough to enjoy almost every minute of my 30 years, and there have been so many people that have helped me over the years, far too many for me to mention individually today, but it really has been a true privilege to work with some incredibly talented individuals who've not only taught me much along the way, but have also been kind enough and gracious enough to dig me out of a hole on more than one occasion, and I certainly hope I have reciprocated. I've also been immensely lucky to work for a company like Transre. I'm really proud to work for a company like Transre for the last 25 years. Because not only have they offered me some great career opportunities, but they also gave me the flexibility, long before it was the norm in our industry, to help juggle those competing demands and priorities that life throws at us, all of us at some point along the way, without having to sacrifice my own career aspirations. So if I have one hope that one good thing can come out of the last 18 months, it's that we must continue to embrace the different ways we have found to work, which I truly believe will help us to break down some of the barriers and remove some of the obstacles that have perhaps traditionally made it a little bit difficult for some very talented people to progress in our industry. I think identifying, recruiting and investing in the very best talent is all of our jobs to secure the future sort of evolution of our companies. But of more importance to me, at least, I think, is the need to provide the very best environment and the culture for that new talent to thrive, not just professionally, but also personally. And I think if we can come some way close to nailing that, then our industry, which has, been a terrific career for all of us, will flourish long after we have moved on. So once again, I'd like to thank Business Insurance for the award and really extend my thanks again to all the many, many people who have supported me immeasurably over the last many years, and also just wish any and all future nominees for this award the very best of luck in their careers. Thank you.
I am honoured to have been recognised as a woman to watch and to follow in the footsteps of so many women within the industry whom I admire. Leadership has been exceptionally challenging during these turbulent times, but with that challenge has come opportunities for new learning. The softer skills that are so often strengths of women have risen to the fore, and it's been more important than ever to lead with empathy, making ourselves accessible and building authentic, trusting relationships with our colleagues. As a mental health first aider, I have felt it incredibly important during the pandemic to role model healthy behaviours. Actively encouraging team members to use annual leave, take regular breaks from the laptop, not arranging meetings over lunch, and ensuring I book lunchtimes out in my diary and talk to colleagues about what I'm doing, the fact I'm going for a walk or a run, or finishing early to attend my children's parents' evenings or do a school run, without feeling the previous shame about sloping off early. The changes going forward with hybrid working will also present new opportunities and challenges, as we all get used to meetings with some people face-to-face and others joining on the screen. Whilst this will ultimately encourage greater inclusivity, we need to be mindful that the before and after meeting chat, often so valuable, is not exclusively limited to those attending in person. My advice to young women who are considering a career in insurance is to believe in yourself. I have been guilty in my career of getting in my own way, fearing failure and a sense of not being good enough. However, if you can build a strong support system around you with people who are invested in your career, then that will enable you to take risks and push yourself out of your comfort zone. Actively seeking out a network both inside your company and in the wider industry, and having many mentors will enrich your career. It's hard to overcome challenges on your own, so seek out people that can help you. I would also say to put your hand up for new things. Face your fears, because only by doing that will you stretch yourself and learn new skills. Get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Take risks. Sometimes things won't work out, but give it a go. If nothing else, it helps refine your thinking about where you see yourself. Sheryl Sandberg's famous quote about careers being like a jungle gym has always stuck with me. Coming from a legal background, I had the expectation that my career should be linear, and I focused on promotions and role levels. But they aren't as relevant in modern careers, and when designing a careers roadmap or development plan, I would recommend identifying your values, your drivers, your strengths and weaknesses, what you enjoy doing, and mapping those to companies and roles that are compatible. Often it helps you to identify which pieces of the puzzle are missing, and you can then ask your line manager for opportunities to acquire those skills, or know that it's time to go elsewhere if those opportunities are not going to be forthcoming. And most of all, my advice to new entrants in the industry is to enjoy it. The insurance industry is dynamic and offers opportunities for a varied, interesting, fulfilling and fun career. You will meet some amazing, inspiring people and make lifelong friends. Just as the world outside is changing, the industry is changing, and the next generation will be critical in shaping what that looks like and keeping it relevant for the future.
I'm deeply honoured and very happy to have been named a 2021 Women to Watch honoree. Quite a few years ago, when I was a student at Stockholm School of Economics, a career in insurance was not something I ever considered. Back then, the cool jobs were either in IT or retail. Luckily, a large Swedish insurer asked me to help them investigate how to evaluate an insurance company's most important asset, its people. So as part of my final thesis, I was working on developing key ratios for human capital to complement traditional accounting. I found it fascinating learning about the importance of recruitment, training and development, and treating employees with respect, as this would directly impact and maximize the value of an insurance company. This made me keen to work for a company where the employees were recognized as the most important asset, and the reason why I have stayed in the industry for nearly 30 years. I spent many years working in the London market, and I must admit that when I first moved to London, I thought it impossible for women to become senior managers without being very tough and hard-nosed. this is no longer the case. I'm impressed with how most insurers have come to value soft skills as much as technical knowledge. Our industry is embracing the fact that a diverse workplace is critical to the vitality and sustainability of an organization, and that above all else, its employees are a company's most important asset. There are many women I have admired during my career, but two special ones I'd like to recognize, both of whom are Women to Watch honorees. Many years ago, I worked for the same company as Hayley Robinson, one of this year's honorees and a highly respected leader. The second one is Nina Duft, one of my former managers at AIG and a past Women to Watch honoree. Hayley and Nina are both leaders who are deeply invested in their employees and who provide unconditional support. I believe women like Hayley and Nina are helping change the perception of our industry, making it a cool and sought-after career choice. I feel so privileged having worked with these remarkable women and leaders. Thank you both for the lasting impact you've had on me personally and professionally. Finally, I believe the pandemic has given us a chance to pause and reflect on what is needed across organizations to navigate and thrive in the face of adversity. Before, it seemed as though coaching, mentoring, and assembling strong teams were the defining skills of an effective leader. As we emerge from the pandemic, I now see that what is needed is the steady hand and emotional intelligence found in many female leaders. Skills such as empathy, compassion, and determination will define this next era in the workplace, especially as we embrace flexibility and agility while creating a culture of inclusivity and understanding. If we get this right, we will be unstoppable. My peers and I are the women to do this.
Wow. I feel really honoured to have been recognised as one of the Women to Watch winners in 2021, in a year where the world and arguably the insurance industry has changed more than I've seen in my lifetime. The pandemic has created fresh challenges for all of us, but I'm glad to have been part of the insurance industry at this time and have been able to contribute to uniting at a time when we've had to create physical distance. I love my job as Chief Actuary at Lloyds. I'd be lying if I didn't say that it was difficult to get to where I am, and that's both getting the role in the first place, but also in being happy and comfortable in my job, which is equally as important and challenging. But that's what's made it all the more rewarding to me. I try not to hide the fact that I've worked very hard to get where I am in my career so far, but I've never doubted that it would be worth it. And that's what keeps me pushing for more. And there is zero chance that I would be accepting this award without the endless support of my family and friends, my team and my colleagues. I am very fortunate to work and socialise in environments where women champion other women and lift each other up. And that is just so rewarding and fulfilling to be a part of. There's no reason that needs to be created exclusively for or by women, but that's the community in which I've really felt that support the most. And I think we should all focus our energy on fostering, on growing and benefiting from that culture. I think the final factor in me accepting this award and being here is being fortunate enough to have had leaders and managers who were prepared to see the potential in my abilities and take what they saw as a chance on me, including when I didn't fit the cookie cutter for the roles. I think there's one piece of advice that I would give, and that is to anyone who's looking to take on a new challenge, is to not take other people's expectations, but to set your own expectations. So don't assume that others have unreasonably high expectations of you that you must meet, and don't settle for anyone underestimating you. Trust your gut, back yourself, and you will succeed. Thank you and congratulations to all my fellow 2021 honorees.
Hello, I'm Caroline Tran. I would like to address my warm thanks to my team for its hard work and dedication. From the bottom of my heart, a very big thank you for your support and the continuous trust you've put in me. I'm both inspired and humbled to be honored for my service as a business professional, but also simply as a human being. It is a beautiful thing when you can pause, look back at your career and life, and observe you never stop trying, never giving up. Diversity, inclusion, and gender parity in our global world is on everyone's lip, but after decades of campaigning and raising awareness, it still sometimes feels like a distant reality. I feel blessed to work within a company such as AXA XL that is determined to work on gender parity and to improve on inclusion and diversity. We must continue to attract women to work here and above all retain them when they are climbing the ladder. Being recognized as a woman to watch is a great honor, and I hope my experiences can encourage other women to forge successful careers. Thank you very much.
Hello. This is a heartfelt thank you from sunny London to Business Insurance for this award. To be recognised and supported by our colleagues and our peers makes these awards really meaningful and relevant, and yet still deeply personal. It's been an honour just to be nominated, as I fully appreciate the strength and breadth of female talent in our industry these days. As Bob Dylan eruditely put it, the times they are a-changing, and it's down to us to keep that forward momentum going. So thank you to Business Insurance, and congratulations to all today's winners and nominees. Thank you, and bye.
Hi, my name is Hui Yu, and I'm an underwriting manager at Emerging Risk, where we build bespoke insurance solutions for cyber, tech, and media risks. It came as a complete surprise to me to win such an honor and to be recognized as a woman to watch through Business Insurance. I must admit, however, it is a great feeling knowing that my colleagues and peers are giving me such recognition and appreciation. At least I now have proof the feeling is mutual. I'm delighted and grateful to be mentioned among such a distinguished list of peers. This is not possible without the support, encouragement, knowledge, and resource sharing from my amazing colleagues. Emerging Risk is truly one of the few employers out there who value the importance of maximizing one's potential, and I feel incredibly lucky to be working with a team of really likable people who I have huge respect for both on a professional and personal level. I'd like to take this opportunity to send my special thank you to Jamie Ballou, Karen Verhagen, Angela Buening, Nicole Simmons, Peter Hawley, and the rest of my amazing teammates at Emerging Risk and ISG across both sides of the Atlantic. To the brokers and agents that I work with every day who have enriched my work experience, and to Business Insurance for building such a wonderful platform to connect and learn from other leaders in the market. The London insurance market is such an exciting place with a rich mix of talents from all walks of life across economics, professional sports, military, recruitment, engineering, legal, and entertainment, to name but a few. This is what makes London exciting, and after 335 years, still standing as one of the leading insurance centres in the world. Working here, we carry such sense of pride and prestige that the momentum of always striving to excel, to lead, to set ourselves apart, and to be ever more creative in offering solutions never slows. We need more platforms like this to showcase the contributions the many talented women and men are making that ensure London's future has a long-standing and unique success of its own. Today, I'm taking this award on behalf of all women colleagues at Emerging Risk, ISG underwriting managers, the wider Ryan Specialty Group team, and the London insurance market. Thanks to everybody who's involved in my journey to date. We all heard it too often, but I'm going to finish by saying, let's just crack on.
Hello, I'm Hai Xie Zhao, and I'm very excited and a great honor to have been chosen as one of the winners of 2021 Business Insurance Women to Watch. This award means a great deal to me, and I wish to congratulate all that were nominated. It is encouraging to see so many women in insurance represented at all levels, including as key decision makers. It wasn't always like this, and to see this progress and to be part of this change is both exhilarating and encouraging. I'm also very fortunate to be part of an organization which recognizes talent and encourages a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Being a member of Sampo International's Diversity and Inclusion Council has only heightened my commitment to helping our women folks to develop further. I have always been inspired by the women leaders in our industry, and I hope to pass along this positive spirit to our next generation of women insurance professionals. There are so many opportunities at all levels to the women in our industry, and we are each capable. We can do it as long as we continue to lift each other up. Thank you.
The 2021 EMEA Business Insurance Women to Watch Awards and Leadership Conference is coming to a close. And I want to thank our corporate sponsors and our wonderful speakers today. Tiffaine Beperon, Amy Barnes, John Neal, Sean McGovern, Florence Todor-Melik, Sabine van der Linden, Theodora Lau, and Danielle Guzman. Thank you all for sharing your valuable insights and perspectives. I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate the 20 new Women to Watch honorees. You are all such important role models in our industry. Congratulations. This past year and a half has helped us understand the importance of taking a step back and planning for the unexpected against the backdrop of a constantly changing risk landscape. There is really no better time to be a risk professional, and we all have an opportunity and maybe a responsibility to influence the journey towards the new normal and support companies in making needed shifts in strategy and strengthen their organizational resilience. And I think with the right focus there, we can influence the direction and bring it towards a cleaner, smarter, and more inclusive growth path than in the past. I think the stage is set for a more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive future. We hope to meet in person next year at the 2022 EMEA Business Insurance Women to Watch Awards and Leadership Conference. Thank you all, and goodbye.
We are Women to Watch.
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 Hi, we are Women to Watch.
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 We are the Women to Watch.
We are 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 Women to Watch.